please welcome Lead Developer Advocate, Salesforce, Aditya Nagtapalli.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Release Readiness Live at Dreamforce. Thank you all for being here, hopefully with the same energy levels that you had on day one. If not, we could always do RRL. Yes? All right, so Winter 24 is coming soon to an org near you with a ton of new features. And what does it mean? With every new feature, you're going to have a new question. Today at RRL, we are here to answer all of your questions. So if you're in the room, start making a note of your questions. If you're watching me online on Salesforce Plus, put it in the chat window. If you're somebody who's using X, put it using the hashtag SalesforceRRL. Cool? And to answer your questions, we have an amazing lineup of product managers here right in the room. This is a wonderful opportunity. I'm saying don't miss it. So, Winter 24, once it's going to come out, you're going to get a release notes. And the release notes document is already 600 pages long if you've taken a look at it. And there are a few clouds that roll out features more often than 3 times a year. So starting Winter 24, you have a new section in the release notes document called monthly release notes. OK, that's not all. We have the dev tooling team here. And the dev tooling team rolls out updates every week. So that's a lot of updates. And to make it easier for all of you to stay on top of whatever we are doing, we have handpicked today a few set of features that we think are the most important and relevant for you. So in the first 40 minutes of this session, we are going to go over these 5 different topics: developer tooling, Mulesoft, Lightning Web Components, Data Cloud, and finally wrap it up with Tableau. And we are going to have exciting demos. And once the demos are done, we are going to open the floor to you so that you can ask all of your questions. So with that, we are going to start off with the first topic for today, developer tooling. And to show you what we have in store, I would like to invite Ananya Jha, Senior Product Manager, Developer Tooling, on the stage. Give her a huge round of applause. Take it away.
Thanks, Aditya. Hi, everyone. My name is Ananya, and I'm your product manager for the IDE experience and now Einstein for Developers. Now, before I get started with all the great new features coming out with this release, I want to take a moment to say thank you to all of you for providing us this feedback each and every release. This feedback is really what helps us as product managers determine that the new features and products we're putting out are really meeting your day-to-day needs. So thank you again, and keep it coming. Now, having been a developer myself, I know exactly how important it is that we continue to innovate in a way that's improving your day-to-day productivity. And so that's why I'm so excited to announce that with Winter 24, we have a ton of new innovations coming that will do exactly that. So first up, we have Code Builder. With Code Builder, you no longer have to worry about downloading or installing any of those developer tools or software to your local environment. Instead, you're able to continue working inside of this web-based browser IDE. And I'm excited to announce that Code Builder is officially going to be in GA this October. So let's take a moment to give everyone a round of applause for Code Builder going GA this year. Woo! Now, next up, we have Einstein for Developers. With Einstein for Developers, you're going to be able to effortlessly generate code with the help of a large language model. And which model, you may ask? Well, behind the scenes, we're using Salesforce's very own in-house LLM, CodeGen. With CodeGen, we're able to ensure that your data and code are never leaving those Salesforce Trust boundaries. And it's been trained on Salesforce languages and frameworks. Next up, we have the Code Analyzer extension, which is now available to you inside of your developer environment as well, so you can look at it inside of VS Code. With Code Analyzer, we're making sure that as you generate code using AI, you're confident in the changes that you're making. So with Code Analyzer, you can scan your code to make sure that it's both secure and performant. So why don't we take a look at all of this in action with a demo? And joining us today, we have Mohit and Julia as our demo drivers. So today, we're looking at CodeBuilder's new setup environment. From here, you can go ahead and enable and install CodeBuilder for your org. Once you've gone ahead and done that, you'll be launched into the CodeBuilder dashboard. From there, you can both create and launch a working environment just like the one we'll be inside of today. Now, the first time you open up CodeBuilder, you'll be inside of this welcome screen. This welcome screen is great because it helps you get started with your Salesforce development. So you have access to all of the documentation or trailheads that you might need to get started with your day. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the great things about working with CodeBuilder is that you don't have to worry about installing any of those developer tools. So for example, I want to take a look at the newest release coming from our CLI, which is SF CLI v2, which is now in GA. Why don't we take a look and actually see that CLI in action now? So today, I want to take a look and understand what all of the orgs are that I'm currently authorized into. The great thing about the new version of this CLI is that it is both intuitive and performant. So I don't need to worry about any of those colons anymore. I get to use a quick space between all of my commands. Why don't we see another example? Let's go ahead and let's create an Apex class called Account Controller. And as we see that class being generated in our output, we'll see both the class and the associated metadata file. And I'll go ahead and jump into that file just to make sure that it matches what I was expecting. And it looks pretty good to me. So why don't we get started with writing some code now? Now, typically, in the olden days, I would have had to get started with this code all by myself. But sometimes that can be hard. I don't want to stare at this blank screen and then figure out what I need to type. So instead, I'm going to use the power of Einstein for Developers. So Einstein for Developers has been created as an extension, so you can use it from both VS Code and CodeBuilder, as we're doing today. So why don't we go ahead and try an example using Einstein. Today, I want to query all of my accounts for their related records. So I'll go ahead and I'll type that into my new Einstein sidebar. And this sidebar is where you actually put in your prompts. And so this is how you're telling the AI behind the scenes what task you're looking to complete for the day. So I've got my prompt in there. We know that we're creating a new class for our account controller. So I'm going to hit ask and actually ask Einstein to generate that code. And there we go. We now have code that has been generated for us using Einstein, and I can take a look, and I'm going to make sure that it follows all of those best practices that I'm used to using. So since it looks pretty good to me right now, I'm going to hit copy, and then I'll add it to that account controller class that we'd already created. So I'm looking at this code now, and again, whenever you're working with AI-generated code, you want to ensure that you're taking the time as a user to review that code for those best practices. This looks pretty good to me, so I'll go ahead and save it, and I'll try deploying it to the org. And this is a great way just to make sure that it does compile, and it does. So I'm going to move on to my next task of the day. Now, this next one is one that's usually a bit more daunting for me. I have to actually go and create the test data to actually test the class that we created. And so I'm again going to do this with the help of Einstein behind the scenes, and we're going to ask Einstein to generate some test data for this account controller class that we've created. So let's go ahead and hit ask, and you know that Einstein is thinking with the little spinner showing it to us. And we have our test data generated. It looks like it's doing exactly what I wanted it to. So I'll go ahead and move on to my next task of the day. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's a number of benefits with us leveraging our in-house LLM for Einstein. Number one is that it's been trained for Salesforce languages and frameworks. But number two is that it's actually evolving every time we release new features from the platform. So for example, Data Weave in Apex is now in GA, and I want to see if Einstein can generate code for me using our new Data Weave feature. So let's go ahead and ask Einstein to parse a CSV file using Data Weave in Apex. And then we'll go ahead and ask Einstein and really see what's going on. And I'm looking at the output. It honestly has done exactly what I'd asked it to. It looks like we're using data weave, and I'm going to go ahead and now copy this into my file so we can keep going, right? Now, we're going to copy it into the file, but then we want to make sure we're still reviewing it for those best practices and patterns. And although it looks pretty good to me, I now have the help of Code Analyzer to ensure that it truly is following all of those best practices. So again, Code Analyzer's VS Code extension is available to you on VS Code and coming soon in Code Builder as well. And so now I'm going to go ahead and I'll scan my existing file using our static analysis tooling here. Behind the scenes, we're leveraging open source tools like Apex PMD, again, to ensure we're following those best practices. And today we completed a static analysis scan. But the great thing about Code Analyzer is that you can also complete a path-based analysis scan that will actually holistically look at all of the code in your org and find all those related references as well. Now, our static analysis scan has finished up, and it looks like I didn't catch one of those errors, and we're actually not following our CRUD and FLS permissions. And so it's a quick fix for our team here. We're going to go ahead and insert in as user mode to our SOCL query just to make sure that our queries are secure. And now I'm ready to go with the help of Code Builder, Einstein for Developers, and Code Analyzer. So we're just getting started with all of our AI capabilities to help transform your developer experience. And I'm so excited to show you all the great new features we have planned in our upcoming roadmap across both developer tooling and environments over the upcoming months. And these features range all the way from inline code completion to code explanations to really transform that development experience for you all. So thank you, and now it's back to you, Aditya.
Thanks, Ananya. All of you, Ananya's team is the one that does weekly releases, so I definitely say keep an eye out on weekly release notes so that you get to see all of the great things that she's shown in action. How many of you have already tried out Einstein for Developers? Show of hands. How do you like it? Good? Actually, I love it. I tried it the other day, and those of you who didn't raise your hands, I would strongly recommend go back tonight, and that's the first thing that should be doing. All right, with that, let's move on to the second chapter, which is Mulesoft. Mulesoft developers in the house? Cool. So Mulesoft developers now get to use the same IDE experience that you have just seen, which is Code Builder. And to show you more, I would want to invite Akshata Sawant, developer advocate Mulesoft, to the stage.
Thanks, Aditya. Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be here at my first Dreamforce and to share all the Mulesoft updates with y'all.
Cool. So Akshata, tell me, as a Mulesoft developer, what is the tool that you're currently using to build Mule apps? And what's this whole new IDE experience about?
Yeah, so we have been using Anypoint Studio, which is an Eclipse-based IDE, for a very, very long time. But thanks for sharing all the tooling with us. We now have a brand new IDE called as Anypoint Code Builder, aka ACB, which will be helping us with build a Mule application. And as we have just seen, it's similar to what Ananya has just shown with the Code Builder, and it's also built on top of same tech stack. And I'm so excited that all Salesforce developers wanting to learn Mulesoft, because now we have a consistent IDE.
All right, that sounds cool. And by the way, ACB is a cool acronym. Yes. How about you show all of us how we can work with ACB?
Sure, let's bring in the demo. So what you see here is a cloud version of Anypoint Code Builder, using which you can design and implement APIs and also build integrations. Basically, it's a one-place store for all your integration needs. For example, let's say I want to design an API. I can go ahead, click Design an API. I can further fill in the information, design an API, and scaffold it further to build a Mule application. So today, we'll see how to design and implement API in order to build and basically retrieve and insert contacts in the backend system. So let's get started. What you see here is a Mule project, an existing Mule project, consisting of a YAML file to define your API specification. Here, we can see we have a contacts endpoint and a get method, which will be retrieving list of all the contacts from the backend system. This is defined using a YAML file, but we can also do the same with the help of OAS. How about we mock our endpoint by simulating our API? Let's bring in the API console and go to our endpoint and mock the service. Yay, we now have a successful result, which is returning the output, and it's as per our expectation. Once our API is validated and approved, we can further go ahead and implement this API in order to build a Mule integration. Today, in the interest of time, we have already implemented and scaffolded this API. So let's bring in the implementation file. Here, we can see that there are different views, right? We can see there are 2 views. Let's give it a time. Yeah. So we have 2 views, which is graphical and the XML view. In the graphical view, we can see there are different components, different connectors. We also have a flow list, using which we can navigate to different flows and subflows. Let's navigate to the flow that we have just implemented, the get contacts endpoint. And we can also see the similar section highlighted in the XML part, where we can also make our changes. Next, we can add in new components using the plus symbol there. We have different components, like the core processors, connectors, snippets. So in the connectors, we have different types of connectors. So suppose if I want to integrate with a Salesforce system, I can go ahead, click on the Salesforce connector. I can perform the operation. I can bring in the operation I want to perform and configure the credentials. Next, we also have snippet files. So basically, snippets are going to help you to reduce the code block and help you with the development time. And this is a very new feature. Apart from that, we have like 2 types of snippets, like user-based and the built-in snippets. And that's not all. You can also integrate with any third-party system by bringing in the connectors from the Exchange, which are available for free. Moving on next. Today, let's add in a very simple connector, a logger component, and let's see how to do that. Now that I've added the logger component in the canvas, let me make some changes and add a message to display all the results, display the payloads from the contacts. And once this is done, I can further go ahead and build, run, deploy, test, basically do everything from this one single place. So let's go ahead and deploy the application. And suppose if in future, if you want to make some changes to your existing API, you can go back to your YAML file, make some changes, and further scaffold it to build a Mule integration. And you can do that simultaneously with the help of iterative scaffolding. And that's not all. For all those of you who love working locally on your studio, we have an exciting update. So Anypoint Code Builder is also available locally as a VS Code plugin, using which you can build your Mule application. You can basically do everything that we have seen on cloud on your studio. And all these functionalities are, as I said, it's available locally. They're expected to be GA this winter release. Moving over to our slides. So the awesomeness doesn't end here. We also have AI features coming up for you with the help of Mulesoft. So on the roadmap, we have Einstein for Anypoint Code Builder with the help of generative flows. And you can actually translate natural language into flow and develop your Mule applications. So that is going to help you to speed up your Mule applications. And that's all about Anypoint Code Builder for you all. I would like to hand over to Aditya. Thank you.
Thanks, Akshata. ACB, it's free. It's in beta. So all of you can give it a try and give us your feedback. Quick reminder before we move on to our next chapter. I'm sure you've seen 2 chapters now, and you have some questions. So if you're in the room, please start making a note of your questions. If you're online, post them using the hashtag #SalesforceRRL. And it need not always be about questions. Frankly, if you like something that you've seen, post about it. Moving on to the third chapter, which is Lightning Web Components. So people who know me, people who follow me on YouTube, know that I'm a huge fan of Lightning Web Components, so much so that I stopped building components and I started building games like Snake and Wordle with it. So I'm personally super excited to try out all the cool new and most importantly, the most requested features that the LWC team is delivering in Winter 24. And to show you this, let me invite Greg Whitworth, Senior Director of Product Management, on the stage.
How's everybody doing? There we go. Super stoked. Not Kirsten Bell or Seth Meyers, but I'll take it. Super stoked to talk to you all because, as Aditya just said, I love LWC. And first of all, I want to thank all of you all for the millions of components you all have been building. LWC is the most engaged with component framework on Salesforce, and so I can't thank you enough. That said, there are still reasons. How many of you are still having to, unfortunately, reach for Aura from time to time? Out of curiosity. Okay, not many, but again, a few. So, unfortunately, you're having to reach from Aura from time to time. We've been hearing your feedback on social media and idea exchange, as well as our very first State of LWC survey that we sent out at the beginning of the year, and I greatly appreciate all of the feedback you've provided. And while we're wanting to do as much innovation as possible, and that's why I love Readiness Release Live, we get to hear feedback from you all on how to improve things. I'm stoked to talk about, we'll actually be delivering the first two of these this year. And then also we're doing some introductions and innovations by introducing GraphQL wire adapter support. I am so excited to share all of this with you all. And to be honest with you, I kind of not a huge fan of talking to too many slides. I love demos, I love code. So Mohit, let's get going with the demo. So first off, we're going to start off with our favorite app. Everybody probably knows if you've been working with Salesforce, the Dreamhouse app. If you haven't been working with Salesforce and the Dreamhouse app, congratulations, you now work for a real estate company called Dreamhouse. And what we've got is we've got over here off to the left-hand side a filtering capability that we're able to drag around. We're able to filter the different properties that we own, we're looking for, and it'll filter on down. And this is great. This is great. We're able to view our different properties. Mohit, let's just jump over to Code Builder and see how that we would go about building this. Historically, we would have spun up an Apex class. We would have written a SOCO query, and quite long and verbose, and we would have bound it to our LWC component to render out that select view. This works, but it's not necessarily right within the context of the component that I'm working on and actually rendering that data. So what we're doing is we're introducing GraphQL, which is an industry standard support for wire adapter. So if we switch over to the similar component for list view, what we do is we import the wire adapter. We then, if we scroll down, you'll see our GraphQL down below. And what we're doing is we're actually passing in those variables using the Lightning messaging service. Right in top, we're putting those into the parameters. Then down below, we're using that where clause and the and clause in order to do our sorting. And then we're able to sort, we're able to order, and the real power of GraphQL is down here at the base. No longer do you have to think about joins, inner joins, left joins, right joins, all those wonderful joins. All you need to do is say, the data that I care about is this data. It does one request. You're not having to do multiple requests across different things. It stores it right within the variable in the context of the component where you're working with it. This is in GA this release. Go use it. Super stoked about it. Please go use it. Up next, the second most requested gap between Aura and LWC is the Workspace API for console applications. So let's go ahead and jump back to the Dreamhouse demo, but this time, maybe you're the manager of various brokers. And so let's go ahead and take a look at Jennifer Wu's work. So off to the right here, we have a Lightning component, and it's got different properties. And when we click on it, it opens those sub-tabs. And so what's great about this is if you're commonly doing something, you're able to not have to do hard navigations. You can do quick successions between different tabs. And this is great for your end users to save time, save clicks, all that wonderful stuff. So how did we go about building this? Again, let's jump back to some code. It's super simple. It's almost too simple, to be honest with you. You import the Workspace API up at the top. Then if we scroll down, we're going to use @wire in our LWC component, bind it to that tab ID. We're going to set the tab to focus. We're going to set the tab name. And voila, That's it. We've got the sub-tabs. That's the second most requested feature. It's in beta, the winter 24. So please go use it. Give us your feedback. I'm super stoked about it going out. Last but not least, definitely not least, the most requested feature by far is dynamic components. So let's go back to the Dreamhouse app one more time. I'm actually seeing nods, which is great. Love it. Yes, thank you. So up at the top, we have the toggle. If we switch the toggle, you'll actually see we get a more aesthetically pleasing component layout, which I prefer because I actually get to see the house, see what it looks like. So everything still works the same, but how did we switch it? So once again, let's jump back over to some code. And you'll see that we have within here this new component type, the LWC : component. And what this is telling LWC is there's going to be a component here. We just don't know which one. So how do you define which one it is? Well, we came up with a really great name called LWC : is. And you bind that to the constructor that's in the JavaScript file. So if we jump over to the JavaScript file, up at the top, we import the two components, that tile view and that grid view. And we then down below basically determine the state of that toggle. And we basically say, hey, this is the component you're going to use to render in that area. We highly recommend this approach if you know the various components that your admins or folks may use, because this is statically analyzable. We can actually optimize for this. That said, there's a reason this is highly requested. Because of the fact that if you're an ISV, you're a partner, you're building a component for a large org, you may not know which component you're going to render in that space. And because of that, Aditya, sorry, I'm already screwing up. Mohit, let's jump back to the Dreamhouse app. One last time, but with a slight switch. There's no longer the toggle up at the top. And this is a more common use case of why this is so heavily requested. So if we go in here, we still want to be able to offer that capability for people to switch this view. If we go in, we set up a custom metadata type. If we edit it, we switch over to grid view, we hit save. We then switch back to that tab and hit refresh. It's real. Say, okay, cool. The grid shows up as you would expect. So what's great about this is if we jump back into the code, we are not anymore hard coding in those components. So you can envision having just a text input where somebody could theoretically type in whatever input they would want if we switch over to the code. So up here at the top, we have this apex that we're basically fetching that custom metadata type. And what we're doing is we're actually concatenating that into a variable. And so what we're able to do is use that same LWC : component, but we're now pulling that down dynamically. It is completely dynamic. That said, I'm going to be Spider-Man for a second. With great power, actually Spider-Man's uncle. With great power comes great responsibility. There's a reason why we don't necessarily recommend this for all scenarios, because it has performance implications. And because of that, use it sparingly. But there are real-world scenarios where you do want to use this, so please use it. Moving on to the roadmap and the slides, we have so much, we couldn't fit into 6 minutes. Not at all. We have template expressions. We have third-party web components. Yeah, please take pictures. Please, yeah, everybody, yeah. Send me these pictures on Twitter, please. I would love them. Okay, but yeah, so much is going on, and I'm stoked about, you want to even tease next year's stuff, because local development, we're experimenting with it. Let's make it better. Stop having to constantly push in order to push up to your org to see your changes. I'm stoked about that. But I'm thrilled that we were able to land the top 2 requested. We'll continue to work down that list while continuing to do innovations in LWC. So thank you very much, and back to you, Aditya.
That's right. Give the LWC team a bigger round of applause. Bigger, because they've delivered not just one, but 2 most requested features in one release. In fact, if you still have questions, Greg and I are hosting a live Ask Me Anything session on our Salesforce Developers YouTube channel next month. So if your questions are not answered today, and if you are trying out the product and you have more questions in the next month, please join us. With that, let's move on to the next segment, which is Data Cloud. And in case some of you missed the announcement, customers with Enterprise Edition and above now get a free tier to Data Cloud. And what does it actually mean? It means you'll be able to try out hands-on whatever the cool new updates that we are going to share today. And to share these cool new updates in Data Cloud, let me invite Daniel developer advocate on the stage. Take it away, Daniel.
Thank you, Aditya. Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Laregi, and I'm a senior developer advocate at Salesforce. Data Cloud is quickly becoming one of my favorite products to advocate for because of its rapid innovation and relevancy to the AI revolution. I'm excited to announce we have some brand new features coming out as of the Winter 24 release that will be generally available. But before I get into what those features are, let me answer a question for you that I've been getting a lot at Dreamforce this week. What is Data Cloud, and what can Data Cloud do? Data Cloud allows you to ingest your data at scale from multiple source systems using our out-of-the-box connectors. You can ingest data from Marketing Cloud, Salesforce, and even Commerce Cloud. Mulesoft developers, you can ingest data using our bulk and streaming APIs. You can even use the ingestion API to create your own connector. After you've ingested your data, you then have the ability to harmonize all of that data in a canonical data model into our data lake, into data lake objects and data model objects. From there, you can use identity resolution to build a single source of truth. And then you can use activations like Tableau Analytics, integrate with Salesforce Platform Events, and even call Marketing Cloud journeys via the Journey Builder API. I'm excited to announce our new features as of the Winter 24 release. Our first feature is the ability to use Data Cloud triggered flows, which allows you to launch flows off of data model objects. Isn't that cool? Before, you had to use data actions and platform events. We also have another awesome feature, which is the ability to bring your own AI model using Amazon SageMaker Studio and Einstein Studio. Okay, let's bring the demo. Here we are in Salesforce, and you can see here that we have a new flow type called Data Cloud Triggered Flow, which once again allows you to launch flows off of data model objects. Let's go ahead and pull up an existing flow. So here we are in Flow, and we're gonna go ahead and click Edit to view the configuration of this flow. So we have a fictitious company called Solar Circles that sells solar panels, and they wanna know when their solar panels aren't receiving any energy. So they've created this solar panel event data model object. And similarly to other flows, you have the ability to launch this flow whenever a record is created or updated. We've also set an additional entry criteria, which is whenever this solar panel is receiving 0 energy. Also new as of the Winter 24 release is the ability to do a transform between objects. Let's go ahead and pull up our transform in our flow. So on the left, we have our solar panel event data model object, and on the right, we have our Salesforce case object. You can easily map data between the two objects just by clicking the nodes. And this will map data over from our data model object in Data Cloud to our Salesforce case object. Cool, right? Yeah. Now we need to test this out. And we're gonna go ahead and use Postman, of course. Let's go ahead and pull up Postman. Now, if you didn't already know, we have a collection of multiple APIs in our public API collection. You can use Marketing Cloud APIs, Salesforce APIs, and we even have Mulesoft APIs in the collection. We're gonna use one of our Data Cloud APIs. Let's go ahead and pull up our ingestion API. Okay, we're gonna use this ingestion API to trigger a solar panel event where we're not receiving any energy to our solar panel. Let's go ahead and fire off. Now, what happened in the background was we inserted a record into our data model object, which triggered our flow, then our transform happened, and finally, a case record got created. So we fired this flow a little bit before the show. Let's go ahead and pull up the case record that got created as a result. And here we are, our case record, created from our solar panel, not receiving any energy. All right, that's not all. Remember, we have another thing that we're launching in the Winter 24 release. The ability to build your own AI model using Amazon SageMaker Studio. Anybody work with data? Anyone in the room work with data? Awesome. All right, here we are in SageMaker Studio. which is a tool that data scientists use to build their artificial intelligence, machine learning, and large language learning models. We're going to go ahead and click Create Project, and we have a new project template called Model Deployment for Salesforce that we can use to train our data in SageMaker Studio. Now with this project, we get a sample Python notebook, we get already an API gateway and endpoint, and we also get some sample code. All right, now we need to create a connection and import data into our model so that we can train our model. So let's go ahead and click Create a Connection. And you can see here we have a new connection type in SageMaker Studio to be able to pull in data from Salesforce Data Cloud. Now, we already previously created a connection, so we're going to go to our previously created connection. And you can see here are all of our data model objects and data lake objects that are currently in our Data Cloud org. Let's go ahead and perform a query to test that this connection is working. So we went ahead and put in our query. And now we're going to go ahead and click Run. And here's the results that came back from our data model object. So we can see that our Data Cloud org is connected to SageMaker Studio. OK, now that we've trained our model, we need to consume our endpoint. Let's go to Einstein Studio and Data Cloud to consume our endpoint. So here we are in Einstein Studio. And this is new as of the summer 23 release. Let's go ahead and click into our product recommendation model. Here we have a little bit of details about our product recommendation model. On our endpoint tab, we have our API gateway and endpoint. And then on the variables tab, we have all of the variables that we can use to make predictions with our model. On our outputs tab is where all of the predictions from our model are outputted to. OK, now this is not all. We also have the ability to do a one-off prediction using Flow. Let's go back to Flow. So here we are back in our Flow, and we're going to enter in our product recommendation model. And here, we just have to configure these variables, and we can use these variables as inputs, once again, to make recommendations and predictions with our model. Cool, right? We can make predictions in Flow. But that's not all. We're developers, so let's go ahead and pull up our Apex class. So here we are in our product recommendation, Apex class, and once again, we can use our model in an invocable action. We're going to set a few parameters to use as inputs to make predictions with our models, and our Apex class is going to output our predictions in our recommendations. Who's ready to build some AI models? Yeah. And that's not all. We have a lot of new functionality that we're working on our roadmap. Let's go back to our roadmap slide. So we also are working on the ability to bring your own model with Google Vertex. And we are working on a no-code, low-code model builder as well. And that is how you integrate Amazon SageMaker Studio and Einstein Studio with Data Cloud. Thank you so much. Back to you, Aditya.
Thanks, Daniel. Data Cloud is quickly becoming one of my favorite products as well because of the sheer amount of functionality it has and the ability to use AI within Apex. Yes. And if you're getting started with Data Cloud, I would strongly recommend you go onto the Salesforce Developers YouTube channel and check out the Data Cloud Decoded video series. Now, this is the second time I brought up our video channel. Why is that? Because we want you to subscribe. So take out your phones, go to YouTube, go to Salesforce Developers, and subscribe so that you can get all the updates that we are trying to share. Another thing, if you notice, that Daniel shared is a Postman collection. How many of you have been using it? Good. With over 150K forks, the Salesforce API collection on Postman is the most used collection on Postman, leaving Twitter and WhatsApp APIs far behind. I understand stunned silence is good, but an applause is even better. Great. We are super glad that our collections are helping you. So with that, let's move on to our final chapter, that is Tableau, and to show you all the updates that we have let me invite Ewald to the stage.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ewald, and I'm leading the developer experiences at Tableau. You just heard from Danielle about all the innovations in Data Cloud and how it makes data in it even more valuable for an organization and its users. And there is no better way to explore the data than with Tableau. And I'm going to show you today, if I have the clicker correct, I'm going to show you what we have delivered this release for Tableau. So first we're going to have the Tableau Lightning Web Component that allows you to seamlessly integrate Tableau into your Salesforce experiences. But Salesforce is not the only platform where you can embed Tableau. You can also embed Tableau in any application or product. And it has never been easier with the embedding playground to get started with this. So let's see how those features work in a demo. Earlier, I created a map in Tableau Cloud. And to embed this into your Salesforce experience, all you need is to copy its URL. So Mohit, can you please go to Salesforce and edit the page? And you might wonder if you can use this as an ISV to include it into your managed packages and deploy it to AppExchange. And absolutely you can. So here you see the Tableau Lightning Web Component. And let's drag it onto the page. And the only thing that you need is to paste the link that we just copied in here. And that's all what you need to get your Tableau visualizations inside of Salesforce. And what Mo just showed you works very well if you want to bring it into Salesforce. But what if you want to bring it into an external-facing application, like this banking app that is developed on Node.js? In the top, you see some buttons that are in the style of the application that allows you to programmatically control the visualizations that you're seeing on here. So you can switch from monthly to quarterly, and you can filter the data using controls in the style of the application. We've made this interaction possible through the Tableau Embedding API library. And as I mentioned, with the embedding playground, it has never been easy to get started. So here's the embedding playground. And Mohit already copied or pasted the URL of the visualization that you just saw in the playground. And here you see the connected apps, where you can paste the secrets from your Tableau connected app to enable single sign-on authentication. In the bottom, you see the JavaScript in the HTML window. It contains the boilerplate code to embed Tableau in your applications. And we wanted to switch between the monthly and quarterly and filter the data, and we do that with interactions. So if you go with the parameter values, which is used to change between monthly and quarterly, you can drag that code snippet into the JavaScript window to generate the code to make that possible. And let's do the same with the filtering of the data. So we also grab that code snippet, drag it into the JavaScript window. And now, Mohit, can you please hit the Run button to see the result? And indeed, you will see that the visualization will switch to the quarterly view and filter on Q2 only. The only thing that is left to get this application, or this visualization into your application is copying the JavaScript in the HTML and hook it up to the right event handlers. So let's go back to the slides. If this demo piques your interest, then sign up for the developer program, where you can get access to a free Tableau Cloud developer instance and a Getting Started guide to get you started with Tableau embedding. And remember, these visualizations are not just to display numbers. It is about telling stories with data. So let's get out, embed Tableau, and tell your stories, and inspire change, and deliver and drive the decisions. Thank you all, and back to Aditya.
Thanks, Ewald. That was actually awesome. I mean, generating a code snippet by just dragging and dropping a few things and embedding a Tableau dashboard in a web component with authentication being that easy I'm definitely trying it out after I go back. So that brings us to the final segment of Release Readiness Live, which is the live Q&A, which is what all of you have been waiting for. Hope your questions are ready if you're in the room. If you're online, Sarah here is going to be your representative, and she's going to be asking the questions on your behalf. If you're in the room, just raise your hand, and someone will come running to you with a mic, and then you can ask your questions. But your questions need answers, right? So let me invite all of our speakers back on stage to take your questions with a huge round of applause. All right. So let's get started. Sarah, do you have a question for us?
I do. This is history in the making, our first question for RRL on Salesforce Plus. So this is going to be for Ananya. Is there a reason Einstein itself doesn't run the code it uses through the same process that Code Analyzer uses?
So that is a really good question. That is actually one of the things that we have actively planned on our roadmap, but Einstein for Developers is currently just in an open beta. So as I mentioned, we're just getting started with our AI journey. This is one of the things that we are actively planning for. We want to ensure that eventually the code that we're outputting is something that you're ready to work with and is compilable and following all of those best practices.
Awesome. So do we have a question in the room? Anybody? Any appreciation is also fine. Just get up and say, we love this feature. OK, that was good. So I'll give you more time. OK, we have a question in the room.
So is there any roadmap to generate the code specific to your organization? I think the code what Einstein AI generates today is generic code, right? But if you want to generate any code to a specific use case for any of our organization, maybe by analyzing our code, is there any roadmap for that?
Yeah, again, this is a great question. So right now, Einstein is generating code for you that's relatively more boilerplate, but we are starting on our journey of actually contextualizing that code. So in its current state, if you explicitly reference any metadata in your prompt, then we're grabbing that associated entity schema to make sure that we're grabbing the correct fields and object names in the response itself. And then if you have an active open file in the editor, we're also taking a look at the method definitions that you have within that file and taking that into account for the generation. So we're limited in scope so far in terms of the context that we're grabbing, but we do have an active roadmap on how we want to actually expand that. So eventually we want to get to a place where we're also able to understand your org's overall schema, and then we're generating responses based off of that information.
That's a really great answer. Thank you for asking the question. We'll get back to you. Sarah, do we have a question from online?
Yes, we have a lot.
OK.
Let's go to Salesforce Plus. This is Jan. I'm sure I missed it in some other session, but when will DevOps work with Bitbucket?
So we have someone in the audience who can answer that for us.
Want me to stand?
Give it up for Karen.
Yeah, so DevOps Center, for those of you who are not aware, we released it in December. It supports GitHub right now. And one of the most commonly requested things is to add support for other version control providers. It has been one of our top priorities this year. So we are, in fact, actively working right now on adding support for Bitbucket. I think the roadmap says right now that we're looking at that for sometime first half of next year. So it's under active development right now. As part of that, we're building what we're calling a service provider interface for those version control system integrations within DevOps Center, which is going to allow us to add additional ones more quickly or allow anybody, partners, yourselves, to actually incorporate other version control providers into DevOps Center. So that'll allow us to add other ones like GitLab and Azure down the line.
Oh, cool. So we have a question in the room from the lady over there.
Sorry, Ananya, going back to you. Einstein, when it is going to auto-develop the code, would it work on custom objects, custom fields in standard object? Are you bringing all of that as well?
Yes, so our model has been trained in a way where it has an understanding of your standard objects that Salesforce provides. And part of the contextual grounding that our team has been actively working on adding thus far is if you are specifying any custom objects in your prompt itself, then we are actually grabbing the schema of that custom object and then using that to then generate the response. So it should understand your custom objects and fields as well. I will preface this by saying we're early on in the journey, so if it doesn't do exactly what you're looking for, then definitely provide us feedback, and that's how we'll be able to improve the model.
Awesome. Sarah, over to you.
Yeah, before we get to a question, I see a shout out from Conrad on Salesforce Plus. He loves what we're all doing, well, what the PMs are doing, so thank you so much.
Awesome.
Good work. Salesforce Plus, Catherine on Salesforce Plus is asking, what are the next level features in LWC?
Greg, the question's for you.
That is super broad. Next level features. We showed the roadmap pretty briefly. There's refresh view coming this release. Template expressions is in closed pilot, which is super cool. You can do complex, basically, think JavaScript expressions right within your template to swap up the templates. And like I said, I'm like super stoked about actual local development, so you're not having to redeploy to your org to see your changes. Yes, exactly. Yes, I like the arms raised. That'll take a lot of effort, so don't expect it like next week or something, because we're not like Ananya and Einstein here. But yeah, so super stoked about that. Yeah, so great question. That's enough, I think.
Great. Do we have a question in the room? Okay, we have two questions. Okay.
So will the Apex large language model be trained on, for example, Andy Fawcett's enterprise patterns and Apex mocks?
Question for you, Ananya, again.
That, again, is a very good question. Right now, we have trained it on generally available Apex code and also customer-provided with permissive use licenses Apex code. So at this point, we're focusing on understanding those general high-level Salesforce best practices and patterns. In the future, we are going to be looking at training it on more specific libraries, such as Andy Fawcett's fflib library as well.
That's an awesome shout out, by the way.
Yeah.
Props.
All right, let's go to an online question, and then we'll come back to you. Sarah?
Yeah, back to online. Ellie on Salesforce Plus is asking, is that ported in data searchable? That's for Data Cloud.
Sorry, can you repeat? Is the ported in data searchable?
Is that ported in data searchable?
Okay, I think what they mean is the data that has been ingested in, is that searchable?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm going to throw it over to my product experts right here, Sharda and Daryl, if I could get a microphone.
So the data within the DMO?
Yes.
Yes, it's searchable. And you can explore in analytics and see its view too.
All right,
awesome.
Perfect. Short and sweet.
Thank you, Sharda.
All right, moving on to a question in the crowd.
First of all, I want to say, thank you. It's a great session. I was just listening. I'm just a developer. So it's really meaningful, this session, a lot of capability and all.
Thank you.
I was just thinking, as a platform perspective, is there any roadmap where we are, adding a lot of feature, adding AI, how the governance limit, because Salesforce is the multi-tenant environment, right? Is there any roadmap, giving relaxation in there? As a developer, I'm just that is day-to-day activity. So I'm just looking forward, is there any roadmap for that to give the relaxation and the governance limit? Thank you.
So you mean, is there a governor limit on the number of queries that you can do on the Einstein platform?
At this point, there isn't an active limit. I might throw it over to Daniel in the audience to give us more info on limits in general.
Hello, I'm Daniel Bellinger, the Apex product manager. There is no current plan to change the limits for CPU or heap SQL queries directly in Apex. We're generally looking to do features that would make it easier to chain your jobs together in more powerful ways so that you can address those limits through those mechanisms, but not within individual transactions, because they're basically service protection limits. Yeah.
All right. We have time for one final question from Salesforce Plus or Twitter.
We're going to try to get to 2, see if we can do it.
OK, let's fetch it.
First one is, I use AppExchange LWC. Why should I use the native LWC?
Yeah,
That's
I
for
will take
Tableau.
that one and immediately pass it over to Mark. So Mark is sitting next to you, yes.
So the old AppExchange LWC required a download, so there were security concerns. And many modern-day IDPs don't allow a pop-up in an iframe. So with the native LWC, it's seamless authentication. So when you hit the Salesforce page, as Eval showed, it just seamlessly shows the viz without the user having to log in. So a lot of advantages.
Thank you. That was actually a really good question. Should we take one more from the audience here? Does anybody else have a question?
Way over there.
My question, well, first, thank you for the LWC support for the Workspace API. There's a lot of extra code that I've written over the years to support that. A follow-up to that would be the utility bar API. Are you looking at supporting that in LWC?
Yeah, that's in that list. That we'll keep walking down. I don't know if it'll be a one-to-one to the current utility bar API, but yeah, keep the feedback coming. And I'm pretty sure it is in that top 10 list, if I recall correctly. But yeah, we're exploring all of them. So please idea exchange, because that is where we go to for the reprioritization. That if you've attended true to the core, that's kind of where we go look. So, but yeah, thank you.
All right, so I think we are almost out of time. And that was Winter 24 Release Readiness Live for all the new developers. Huge round of applause.